Welcome to B2B with Randy and Craig, where we speak to local entrepreneurs and learn about their journey. It's B2B with Randy and Craig, where we're going to talk about the rise, the fall,
and the kicking up.
Easy. It's a family show. I tell you that every week.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about entrepreneurship, and our goal on this show is to inspire other entrepreneurs to get up and get it done.
Do it.
Today, I am here with George Haldulis. Did I pronounce it right?
Haldulis, yes.
Sorry, I'm terrible. Of All County Pest Control. George, got to ask you the first question.
Why bugs?
Oh, why bugs? Well, why not bugs?
Let's start there. There's a lot of them.
I didn't think he was going to say that.
I mean, ultimately, I was blessed with the fact that a close family member owned a pest control company, and I was relatively young on my first debut, so to speak, when I went out for pests. And the gentleman that I worked with really liked me. And it started from there. And I got real lucky because my cousin was friends with a world-renowned entomologist. And when he saw...
Whoa, what's entomology?
Yeah.
Well, entomology is the study of insects, all insects.
I thought that was just kids laying down. I thought that was me when I was a kid. Sorry.
So that being said, he liked the fact that I was real young, this guy, Dr. Austin Frischman. So he kind of took me under his wing, and he started taking me around to troubleshoot for other companies. And he's world-renowned, and he's the best.
Is he still around?
Yes, amen. Yes, he is. He's elderly these days. But
do you ever you don't get grossed out by the bugs or insects or anything that you've seen?
It's just like anything else. I'm sure the first time a surgeon cuts something open, he's a little freaked out. But after the 400th time, it's kind of like, let's cut this puppy open, right?
What's the most disgusting bug? What's the
most? Well, you know what? Roaches freak out because they move so fast, and they're not necessarily, a skeevy insect, so to speak, but they really freak you out because how fast they move, and they will get on you real quick. And before you know it, you'll have one crawling up your pant leg.
Who needs that?
No.
And is it more than just bugs? I mean, I know we're saying bugs.
Yeah, because you know what? When you're really educated in the industry, you learn the lifestyle, biology, and habits of the insects. And there within, you find the root cause. And finding the root cause ultimately is what you need to do in order to solve a problem, not to just mask it.
So not just wipe them out, but wipe out a nest, wipe out the colony.
Correct. Provided they're a social colony. There are different structured colonies like this: social, semi-social, and solitary. When you're dealing,
like a solitary.
He's a solitary character. There's no doubt about it.
He was a bug.
Yeah, but...
There'd be no other.
No, definitely not. You'd have to come in with like
there's only one of these guys.
Right. Easy kill.
So, that's a great example. Like, so if you want me to control, let's say, the spotted lanternfly.
Oh, those things are crazy.
It's difficult to control it on a structure because they emanate from a different source and fly to the structure. So you have to go back to the source, the tree of heaven, and find out what's going on and try to eradicate the trees.
Whoa, tree of heaven?
Tree of heaven. So it's a native tree to China. So with this insect being an invasive species, it was like their natural food source to work on that.
So they sent the trees, then they sent the... All right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't think they're on cameras on those little guys.
I got you.
So All County Pest Control, the name itself, how did that come to be? Did you have a different name that you were kind of like All Island or something, or you just
All World?
Yeah, All World.
That's a great question. So my wife and I, we had thought about a name for the company for a while, and we brainstormed, we wrote them down, we did a lot of different things. And when I was leaving the company that I was working for...
How many years are we going back? I'm sorry.
We're going back when I started my company in 2000.
So when you started, I just want to ask, if you don't mind, when you started the company, you were working with somebody else, you had enough, I'm going to say, I'm going to start my own business. We understand why bugs. You gave us that story. What a scary and exciting time in your life and your wife's life.
Yeah, considering that we just bought a house.
Kids yet?
Yeah. No kids,
okay.
No kids. But we had just bought a house, and I said, listen, I want to go on my own. I think I can,
Crazy.
Yeah, pretty much. Everybody was like, what? But we did it, and I had enough resources within the industry to...
Resources being contacts and so forth?
Contacts, people that knew of me, knew my quality of work, and, even even to go as far as like the distribution center. You know, I used to walk in there and it was like a comedy routine. We'd hang out for 2-3 hours when I was a kid. Yeah, and I was a kid. I was 15, 14, 16. I didn't drive yet.
Right.
You know, so as I grew into my own, and when I was 25 and decided I was going to do this, you know, they all watched me evolve into an adult. So
they were cheering you on.
I had immediate, you know, credit with corporations. They were like, he's good for this and good for that, and you know, they helped me start, and that was tremendous as well.
So,
That's awesome.
so you didn't go to a bug college. Is there any, you know,
Insect.
insect university?
Yeah, so yes, there is.
There is?
There is.
I
There
was
is.
joking,
Which I
but-
did not attend, but yes, there is. I mean,
Wow.
Cornell University, Penn State University, they have huge entomology departments. Huge.
Wow.
And that's where we get a lot of our information from, and identification as well. Because just because you see an insect, you look down, you might not say to you might think to yourself, somebody knows the name of that insect. The fact is, they might not.
Right.
And there's a lot.
Because there's so many different
variations.
versions of every-
and we discover new all the time. So you know, there within is the evolution of the practice. It's like it never ends.
Got it.
You know?
I want to go back to something. I want to go back to 20 years ago when you were saying you're getting started. Earlier, we interviewed somebody who has a tent company, and he told the story when he bought his first tent. You know, what accomplishment it was. Here we are. We're starting. It was a side hustle, but you got to start someplace.
Right.
What was the first thing you buy? What do you buy?
So I was a partner for 4.5 years at the company that I was leaving. They had brought me on as a partner because they didn't want me to leave.
Got it.
That being said, when I left, part of the negotiation was I want this material, this piece of equipment, these accounts, and I started with a very small bundle.
Was that a
Let's
fight
put it
to get
together.
those?
No. I always do that. I always
Okay.
do that. Yeah, I always do that.
That's how you gave up your equity. In
That's
that
how
other
I gave
company.
up the equity in the company, and I walked away. And I started with, you know, a truck, a spray can, 2 or 3 different products on my truck.
Your wife answering the phones, and
my
you're out
wife
there.
answering the phones. And what we did was we went to a phone answering service, and we developed this whole, you know, welcome to All County Pest Control, the premier pest control company on Long Island, you know, and all this. And my wife used to answer the phone and say, "Please hold," and put them on hold.
Perception is reality.
Yeah.
And she would look at me and say, "Start getting dressed, because I'm about to send this person a manager." So, and I would say, "All right," and I would get dressed. You know, we had no money, we had
That's
no
fantastic.
work.
Wow.
You know, and I would get dressed, and she would say, "You know, I just happen to have a manager in your area. He could be there within an hour. Would you like that?" And yes, and I would run there. And then some days I was a supervisor, some days I was a manager.
Some days you were an
Once
employee.
or twice, depending on the size of the account, I was
you
the
were just
owner.
climbing and falling down the
it-
ladder left and right. Huh?
I
yeah,
love
well,
it.
you know what? It's all about perception at the beginning, because people were hesitant to write contracts with me. They were like, "You're the owner," you know, because I was young.
Right. Yeah.
And you know, how many years experience do you have? You know,
Sure.
and you know, it's a hard sell. But after I proved my point to a couple of people, it became, I want to help you.
Right.
I'm going
Right.
to give you my neighbor. I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you my business. And
Well, it has a lot to do with who you are, the kind of person you are. I mean, you and I have known each other for a few years, and you're one of the most stand-up people
Thank
I know.
you.
Yeah.
Thank
You
you.
do what you say you're going to do when you're going to do it.
Say what you do and do what you say.
And
Yeah.
that's you,
Yeah.
100%, which that's half the battle. But I also believe that an entrepreneur, a young entrepreneur, the one thing working against them is their age, because you don't have experience.
Correct.
And the only way to overcome that is by doing exactly what you say you're going to do,
Yeah.
working hard consistently and being there.
Right.
So I'm sure that was a huge obstacle to overcome as a young man.
Absolutely. Especially because the industry calls for like 24 hours in service at the beginning. You know, diners and restaurants don't want you in the morning. They
Yeah.
want you at 10, 11, midnight. Diners want you at 4 a.m.
They don't want
So,
you there during
I
breakfast
didn't
rush? That's
sleep.
odd.
I didn't sleep for 6 years of my life.
Well, I got to tell you, you look terrific. You really look terrific.
Now, Randy is known for Egress Pros, and
Mm-hmm.
Egress Pros is known for We Have Big Windows. And I, being That's a Rap Productions, am known as the undisputed cinematography champion of the world, right? What is the motto, slogan for All County Pest Control?
Well, something in the industry that everybody fails to do is complete the task at hand, because it's not a single thing. So, you know, in many instances, when you call somebody and they say, "Okay, I'm going to come out and do that," a contractor comes out, hangs the door, he's done. He
Right.
leaves. It's done. Never talk to him again if you don't need to. Pest control is a little different because you need to find the root cause, like I was talking about, so moisture control and things like that.
Right.
So ultimately, what I've been able to do through the years that nobody else has been able to do is cultivate a relationship and really complete the task at hand, which is part of our mission statement. To
So
complete
what is the
every-
task?
the
Get rid-
task at hand
wipe
is
out.
to eliminate the colony, find the reason why they were there. Because just because you eliminate a colony doesn't mean that a new one won't move in because the living conditions are prime. It's prime real estate.
Right,
it's
right,
the
right,
coast
yeah.
of
So what
Florida.
even set it up?
So if I come
The
in and I
moist
kill,
dark, I mean, this is like Bahamas
if
over
I
here.
come in and I kill everybody on the coast of Florida, believe me, it's going to get re-inhabited.
Right, right,
You know,
right.
it's that simple, right?
so
Until
you're-
I
Watch what you
change-
say here on the air.
No, but that's
You know what I'm
well,
saying.
this is Long Island Station, so- but that's a good point. So it's not just wiping it out; then it's going in and doing the work.
To
There
make
you
sure
go.
it stays
So
unhabitable.
Wow.
what we've been able to do is, jack houses off the foundation, change the structure underneath that's been damaged. We
Wow.
change sill plates, joists, girders, roof column, anything you could think of, ridge beams, anything that's been affected by that insect or has retained moisture.
That's
What
tremendous.
do you-
Eliminate.
What do you think is the most invasive creature? The when you hear that you got that call, you go, well, it's this is gonna be fun.
I'm thinking
So-
spotted lanternflies right now, but I could
think
be wrong.
sprickets.
So, I mean, all insects are structural seeking, right? Well, at least 95% of them are structural seeking. So
Right.
they're all relatively invasive. They all want to get in. They all want to get on the structure. They all want harborage. They all want moisture. They all want those living
Right.
conditions, right? But the
doesn't?
most invasive for me are termites because they can come from the center of your structure up through the footing, the foundation, where it's poured around the perimeter, and when they get in, you have to detect them. So now you have a finished basement and they're swarming in the northeast corner of the house. Doesn't mean that's where the colony is.
Right.
Right.
It could be elsewhere, and it is elsewhere.
Got
it.
So it's very termites are my forte. I
So
love
what? Let me
termites.
ask you something. I remember a few years ago, everybody was talking about bed bugs. Wasn't bed bugs the big thing?
Oh, yeah.
what
Well-
happened to bed bugs? By the
No,
way, did we
hey.
take care? We eradicated
They're
them?
sleeping.
We
That's
got
a
rid
great
of the bed
question.
bugs.
That's a great question. So, ironically enough, because I started in the industry at 11 years old, I had treated bed bugs in Manhattan a couple of times. By the time I was like 15, 16 years old, and then never heard another word about a bed bug.
Right.
Never, never, never. And then after 9/11, what happened was, this is what the industry states.
Right.
What happened was they made the flights from Western Europe
Right.
dirt cheap to go to Hawaii, which was the first recorded bedbug case in the
Hawaii
United
had the
States was in
first.
Hawaii.
Wow.
And what happens is once you get an insect that's translocated
That's
from,
it.
you are doomed, especially something that reproduces like that.
So the bed bugs weren't native to America. They're another bug that
They're from Europe.
Oh, wonderful.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm not positive,
So
but
you know,
I think
it's
they're
funny
from
because I
Europe.
was saying to somebody, I feel like we took care of two problems, and I'm wrong. Bed bugs and ring around the collar. You don't hear about that anymore. You don't hear that anymore either. I don't know. They must have taken care of it. So let me ask you, what was the turning point in All County in your experience? So now we're 20 years in business.
No. Well, the turning point for me was probably about 6 or 7 years in
Right.
to owning the company. I got a phone call from an employee that used to work at the company that I was a partner in.
Got it.
That I maintained a friendship with, who I still speak to almost all those guys to this day. But I maintained a nice friendship with him. And he called me and he said, listen, I got a little bit of a problem. So I said, what's the matter? He said, I got a
bedbugs.
job. I got a job at a factory. And I told them that I was involved in pest control and yada, 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 yada. And then when they asked me if I was licensed, I said yes. Well, now I got roaches in my factory and I can't treat because this is a pretty serious problem. Now, I'm not going to mention brand names or anything.
I was going to say, let's not.
So I said, okay, I'll send a guy down. So I sent the guy down, and when my guy got there, he said, you need to come here. This could be tremendous.
Oh, wow.
So I went down there and introduced myself, took a look at what was going on. My colleague, who at the time was my colleague and who's my best buddy now, introduced me to the owner of the factory, and I started doing factory work. And that changed
SQF,
things.
right? Isn't that SQF?
And there's AIB, SQF, Cooks and Thurber. There's all different third-party or auditors that come in. And
Can you explain to people what a third party? I know what it means. There's many people
Right.
that probably do not understand how
they
you
don't.
get into a
They
food
don't.
factory.
And that's the next level of
Yes.
pest control
Right.
because there's a lot of tracking and trending that's necessary, and I'll explain what that is in a second.
Okay.
And the documentation of the tracking and trending is imperative because that's exactly what a third party auditor does. So they're not on site like we are constantly, or the site manager and the quality assurance manager. They're not on site, the
Right.
auditors.
Right.
So when they get called in to confirm that this factory is within certain parameters of a standard that they need,
and whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter
it
what.
doesn't matter what it is. It could be pest control. It could be their process. It could be
Right.
where they stored their allergens and where, compared to where their non-allergens are. There's a lot of things that go on in a factory people don't realize. But that being said, when the auditor comes, he has to analyze the factory. Now, that's not just walking around the factory and looking at it, because you can make that place pristine in 24 hours, and that's not the reality of what just took place the last year. Right?
And plus,
So-
you taught us that what we see is not what you get, because
that's-
you just said earlier we got to take care of where they're living or
Correct.
reproducing.
Correct. And as you can imagine, in a factory, there's millions and millions of cracks and crevices where there's contact from the legs for the machinery touching the floor, where there's wire harnesses attached to the side of the walls. All of that is pest control because that gets all particles from the manufacturing process, including shards of steel and metal and things of that nature, because it's a mechanical device as well. So there's a lot that goes on in manufacturing to get a clean bar off that line.
Right.
When that auditor comes in, he gets hit with books. And in those books, one of those books says pest control, and that's the first part of the audit. And if you do not pass pest control, they will not go any further on the audit.
I'm going to
It's
ask
an
you something. I'm going to
automatic
interrupt
fail.
you for a second. Describe pest control. Insects. That could be mice or.
Oof. In a factory, it's a big variable of insects that the common homeowner doesn't always see. Because let's say hypothetically you're in a pasta factory.
Right.
Well, guess what? You're going to get pasta beetles in that factory naturally because of the particles that
Didn't even know
particleize.
there was a pasta beetle.
Oh
is a
yeah,
pasta
there's
beetle.
or grain beetles
The
or
pasta beetle.
You know,
You gotta know how to
And I
say
bet
it.
that came from Italy.
little Italian beetle. Yeah, Nunzio.
They hit you with a
Nunzio
wooden
the beetle.
He has a little hat on and a big mustache.
They're tough
Too
bugs.
funny. So there's different insects that'll come from different product.
Right.
So you have grain beetles. You have sawtooth grain beetles. Then you have meal moths. Then you have clothing moths. There's different moths. There's different everything, and they all emanate from different product.
So I guess, I'm going to. We're talking industrial, but even when you're home, like sometimes people open their cabinet, they have moths flying around. They don't
Correct.
understand what that is. That is a byproduct of the mealy.
Well, what it is you've had that product in your cabinet
Too
for
long.
3 years.
Yeah.
You're like, you gotta check your expiration dates because you gotta realize that the factory that produces that has a control group of that batch that goes out set on a shelf. So when you call and you say there's worms, they check their shelf.
Right.
And they'll tell you whether or not that product should have worms or it was stored in, not prime conditions and all that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, you could have things stored too long in your. I've seen a lot of things.
I can
come out of
imagine.
people's
I can
cabinets,
imagine.
man.
I got to ask, and we ask everybody. Craziest story. I mean, you got to have some crazy stuff that goes
Oh my
on.
God.
I got to hear.
Can I
got to
say
hear
this
some
on
good-
the air?
Well, I don't know yet. Say it, and if you can, we cut it off.
Oh dear God! So a guy that was painting my house for me, the first house I bought, says to me, "Listen, my partner's getting married, and the girl that he's marrying has roaches, and he
God.
doesn't want to move her into the apartment because he thinks she's going to bring the
She's
roaches."
gonna bring the
with her.
roaches.
So I said, "All right, listen, you're doing me a big favor." He was doing me a big favor. This guy, he was paying him, but he was doing me a big favor. So I said, "All right, listen. I'll go for your partner who's here with you, and I'll take a look at what's going on. I'll do what I can for the house. He goes, yeah, but he doesn't own it. You got to call the father. She lives with the father, all this stuff, right?
Okay.
So I get there, and here's this creepy dude, answers the door, and he's like, the roaches are in the basement. And he walks away.
I thought he was going to say,
Didn't even open the door.
I hate the
Barely
roaches.
open the door. So I come in, I'm like, there's 19 doors in this house. I'm like, is that the basement there? So he's like, yeah, right there. So I go downstairs and I start looking, and lo and behold, they're loaded with roaches. There was 2 girls, young girls, probably early 20s, living in 2 separate rooms.
Did they have egress?
Down.
They didn't have an egress. They didn't have an egress.
Son of a gun.
Living downstairs in the basement, and there was a refrigerator between the bedrooms, right? And when I went down there, you never turn the lights on if you're looking for roaches because they're non-photo stable. So light makes them hard. So no light, they're out. So you go down there with a flashlight and you can see everything that's going on. If you turn the lights on, you're going to miss everything.
So that's the way to walk into a basement, really, with a flashlight.
That's the way I walk into every restaurant for the last
Good to know.
36 years of
You
my
know, I'll
life.
know that when I go to dinner with you next time.
Yeah, if I see you,
First
if I
with a
see you
flashlight.
walking into the restaurant or place that I'm at
No,
like
if you see
that.
him walking in, it's okay. If he walks out, then you know not to go.
Correct.
Right.
And I've walked out.
I could imagine.
Because you could smell fecal. You could smell roach fecal.
Maybe from now on, I should go out to dinner with you every
Well,
weekend.
you should call me and let me know where you're going.
Yeah,
You'll
you'll check it out
Yeah.
first. By the way, that's another service all county pest control offers. You call if they rate you.
Since you started,
Tell you
So
where to
anyway,
go.
so you go downstairs, you got your
I
flashlight.
go downstairs, I got my flashlight, and I see these roaches going in the back of the refrigerator, which is regularly common, And I see them going into the door jams, the molding, and I'm like, wow, they're loaded. So I go into this girl's room, and I look, and there's clothes all over the place. Clothes everywhere.
On the floor.
Drawers half open, real makeshift furniture, too. Screwed back together, the
IKEA,
drawers
they couldn't
won't
finish.
close
No.
right. You can tell, there's stuff hanging out of them.
feeling very Texas Chainsaw Massacre
So
vibes.
I'm like, this is going to be horrible. This is going to be a real rough treatment, right? So I go upstairs and I talk to the father, and I'm like, listen, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to do this, that. So I was going to do a baiting procedure because I can't spray anything anyway.
Because
You
the
should
clothes is
bait
everywhere.
anyway, but that's a different topic for a different time. But
We'll
anyway.
get you with that one next time.
Yeah. So I go down there with my bait gun, and there's a lot going on. And when I get into this one bedroom, off to the right, I still don't know if it was the girl that was marrying or the sister. And I don't want to know, right? So I get into this room, and there's a drawer that's twisted on an angle, hanging out, and the face of the drawer is off.
Right.
And I look in with my flashlight because there's roaches all over the edges of this. I look in and it's loaded in the back behind the drawers with roaches. Loaded. So I'm like, oh man. So the bait gun has this long adapter called the sharpshooter. Okay. So you screw it into the tip, and I'm like, and I fill it up with bait, and I'm getting into these cracks and crevices, and a big chunk of bait, because it was like dusty in there, you know, a big blob of bait fell down. And now I can't just leave, can't just leave it. It blobbed into the drawer real bad. So now I'm holding this drawer, and I slide the drawer out, and I got my knee holding the drawer.
So it doesn't fall.
And I'm like looking at the blob of bait, and I have a bunch of towels on me, and I'm taking the towels, and I'm wiping. I'm moving stuff, and I look down.
Oh, no.
And there it is.
Oh, no.
Big Pappy, this big thing, right? And I'm like, it's bait all over it.
Yeah, and you're like, what do I do
I'm
now?
like, oh my God. So I'm now, remind you, I'm balancing myself. I got this knee, right? I grab this thing, I pick it up, and I put it under my arm. And
you
I'm
wipe it
going
up?
like this, and I look up, and the father's looking at me in the
Oh
doorway.
my God.
And I'm like, he goes, what is that? And I go, I don't even know what to say to you right now. And he's just holding my, I'm like, I'm stuck.
What a picture.
I'm like,
What a picture
I
that
don't
would
even
have
know
been.
what to say to you right now. And he stormed away. I finished cleaning that thing up. I threw it back in the drawer. I pushed the drawer forward. I said, I got to get out of this place.
Did you get paid?
No, I never charged the guy, but I never even told my friend.
I was going to ask, was it the wife or the sister?
I was concerned because that material got on that.
Well, that's
on
what
that.
I was going to ask.
You
That
know-
was the next question.
Jeez Louise.
Well,
So what do we do?
Look,
we
What
move
do
on.
do?
We move on.
On the second treatment, what do? We go back.
and clean it off.
I clean it.
How long after was the
A
second
week.
treat-
I lied. I said I got to come back a week later. It was really bad.
Oh,
Usually it's like 3 weeks or so. I said I got to come back a week later.
Well, hopefully she's on vacation that week.
Yeah, right? It's a honeymoon, right?
You know what, though? From the sounds of it, with those roaches and what was going on then, you might have done him a favor.
I brought a tech with me, and I'm like, can you go in the back of that drawer and grab that thing? And he's like, oh no, bro, I'm not touching that. I go, yeah, you are.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, you are. We got clean.
We got clean. You have no idea what this thing has been through.
Who's now my best friend, Mad Tech.
That's
We've
funny.
been through war
Oh,
together.
it sounds like you guys been through a lot together.
So since you started in pest control, what kind of like technological advances do you think like have made your job so much easier that you wish you had when you first started?
You know, I would say that the evolution of the products that we use and their mode of action, which is how it affects the insect, right?
Right.
Have become better for the environment, better for the people applying it.
Right.
And I'm not saying better or healthier. I'm not trying to use those
Not
terms.
as dangerous?
Less toxic.
Okay.
Less caustic.
Okay.
For the environment, the techs, and the people that we're treating for.
Awesome.
Which is real nice. And at the end of the day, it's all accessibility. Nothing's really made anything easier.
Okay.
It's knowing the insect, finding the insect, why it's there. Then I have great product to treat it with.
Right.
But the treatment procedure hasn't really varied too much.
Okay.
You know what's interesting?
Except for baits, which have been around now 25 years, so I don't even consider it all that new.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
when you sit and like I said, I know George for a long time. It's the pit. We talked about fire in the belly earlier. It's the fire in the belly because he's not just an exterminator.
Right.
That's not what you are.
Right.
Right. It's passion. It's the understanding.
The
I'll tell you
education.
what's funny. My father had told my next door neighbor when we were hanging out one day, he goes, my son, he could have been a heart surgeon. He just chose to go into bugs for some reason. And it made me laugh hysterical. I don't know if I would, I don't
No,
have
but
the
I get it.
wherewithal
I
for
get
that
what
school.
I get it.
But yeah, anything that I do or I do not do.
And that
that
is
simple.
fact, and that's passion, and your
Yeah.
business 20 plus years later. Tell us how we can get a hold of you, website, phone number, all
Social
that fun
media.
stuff.
Well, I am a word of mouth company, and my phone number is 516-342-9808. The name of my company is All County Pest Control. My coin name in the industry is Georgie Bugs. And
Website.
I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to help you out in any way I can.
And I'm sure that you will. And by the way, those of you that know Georgie Bugs, and I know him a long time, usually he's wearing a big cowboy hat.
Yeah, where's the
but
hat
because the
today?
Cowboys lost yesterday. Nah, he's not a Cowboy fan. I would never say that about him. We wouldn't have him on the show.
I was running late. It was
He
on
running
my
late.
counter.
His hair was a mess. His hair was a mess this morning. Georgie, I want to thank you so much for taking
Thank
time
you,
out of
guys.
your day, share your
Really
journey.
appreciate
I hope
it.
that your story inspires somebody to get up, whether your passion is bugs, tents, egress, video, get up and chase your dream. Thank you, brother. We appreciate you coming out.
Thank you for having me,
Thanks.
guys. Appreciate you guys.
Take it easy.
Thank you for tuning in to B2B with Randy and Craig. Looking forward to hanging with you next week.